Hey all, Baruch Halevi B here from Defiant Spirit. Thanks for tuning in. I want to talk to you today. Sort of a part two. I did a previous live stream maybe last week around the idea of the Enneagram and wounds. And it's a pathway to understanding we each have primal wounds. We build our entire life around protecting our wounds. And I coach people all day, every day, counsel people around what those wounds are and how to heal them. And it's truly magnificent when you get into the Enneagram, this ancient personality typing system, from a perspective of what's your wound. The Enneagram talks about there's 9 fundamental wounds. You have all 9 of these in you, but one is particular to you, and it has never failed. I've never worked with somebody who hasn't discovered their core wound and just had this sort of epiphany of, I've built my entire life around protecting my wound. I think of a cut I had the other day, and it was like a little infected, and one of my kids went to touch it. I just had this, knee-jerk reaction. That's how we live when we have these wounds inside of us, and we don't even realize it. And we live in reaction, right? My work is around Viktor Frankl, who taught people you don't have to live in reaction, victims to your circumstances. You can take back your power to choose your response, but you gotta know why you're reacting. That's where the Enneagram comes in. It talks about 9 fundamental ways that we react, our why we react, and 9 fundamental ways to repair, to heal our wounds. That was the last stream. You can listen to it and have a podcast coming out on it. But I want to talk today about something else, and that is healing other people's wounds. Because the Enneagram, as insightful as it is to me about my own inner work, my own life, where I have blind spots in my life. I just don't see the wounds. And it gives me a mirror so I can look at myself and really do this work. But it allows me to see the wounds of others in ways I just either couldn't or wouldn't without some type of a roadmap. And so we use this to understand other people's wounds. I want to share with you practically how that shows up in somebody's life. I'm going to minimize myself here and share with you this slide I just made. This is not a traditional Enneagram necessarily labels of wounds. This is mine. And I could be talked into different names for each of these types of wounds, but this gives you a good feel of it. So Enneagram ones, so their core wound, and they're called the reformer, let's see, the reformer, the perfectionist. Enneagram ones, their core wound comes from this fundamental feeling that they're not perfect. They're imperfect. They're immoral. They just live with this feeling like they're not good. Now, you'll see with all of these, it becomes ironic since they tend to be the most moral, ethical, good, responsible people I know. And I think that comes from a reaction of spending your life feeling like I'm not this, so I need to become that. The work of healing comes when we stop having to live our lives in reaction, and you can choose to be good for goodness sake. Right? I feel like it's a Santa Claus song, and not do it because you're afraid. Right? There's just 2 different things. Even if it looks the same to the world, I'm being good because this is what I aspire to. I want to be a good person versus I don't want to be bad. And that's really what the wound does. It causes us to live in reaction. I don't want to be imperfect, says the one. So if you want to help a one, if you know a one, if you are a one, but especially if you know a one, I have 4 or 5 ones in my family. I have many clients who are ones. I have friends who are ones. So you do too. This is relevant to all of us. Just know that your job is not to help them become better people. That is with every other type that is true. My work changed when I realized I needed to help my son in particular become worse. It doesn't mean I had to help him excuse himself from the mistakes that he made or we all do that. I mean, I don't care what number you are. We gotta make improvements, but he didn't need me to add on to his feeling of imperfection. He already knows the imperfections. The one has the inner critic like no other type. So my job in helping ones help them heal their wounds is to help them relieve them of the inner critic and certainly not add to it. So if you know a one, help them heal by diminishing that noise of you're not good enough, you're not perfect enough. They tell themselves that all the time. They don't need you to make them more imperfect. Enneagram 2, the helper, the giver, the lover, the nurturer, sort of the quintessential mother figure in our lives, or mother in our lives. In my case, my mom is a 2. Enneagram 2s really grapple around not feeling loved. And so the more we can do to just tell a 2 that he or she is loved, not because of what she gives us, but because of who she is. And we love her not because of the gifts, not because of the service she provides, not because of anything other than she's just lovable. I think of my mom. She's just a lovable human being. And even the 2s, like other types that aren't obviously lovable, they're children of God, and helping see that within them and helping remember that they are lovable human beings, and they don't always feel it. So our job is to remind them and not manipulate them into taking care of us or giving to us. And we don't do it usually on purpose, but we do it. So really be mindful that 2s need just to be reminded that they are loved for no other reason that they are lovable. Enneagram 3s, the achiever, the performer, these are the ones who just do. They have a core fear of failure. And so when you can remind an Enneagram 3 that they are good and worthy of love and admiration, not because of their successes, but because of who they are. It's not that different than the 2. 2's coming more from a place of wanting to be loved for what they give, and 3's doing it more from a place of being loved or respected or needed based on what they achieve. And so achievement is a piece of why we're here, but it's not the only reason. They're human beings, not human doings. So just remind 3s they are worthy because of who they are, not what they achieve. Enneagram 4, the individualist, the romantic, the artist. They try so hard to be special, to stand out, to be unique in some way, shape, or form. And in the process, when you get to know a 4, you realize it's coming from an existential loneliness. These are the most existentially lonely folks on the Enneagram. And they're afraid of being alone. Now, it's going to be similar to the 6, I'll show you, but very different in that for 4s, they're just afraid that if they don't stand out and present themselves as set apart from the rest, they won't be wanted, worthy, or welcome. And we have to remind them that they are special. Like 2, 3, and 4, they're all the same triad of heart types. So they're all special. They're all grappling with being special, wanted, needed, and loved. But 2s are really wanted, needed, and loved. But 2s are doing it from a place of being special. Like 3s are doing it from achievement, and 2s are doing it from relationship, and they're worthy because of who they are. Enneagram 5, 6, and 7. These are the head types, so there's a lot of similarity in them. 5s are grappling with, 5s are the investigator, the thinker, usually those are the 2 terms, the observer. Enneagram 5 really is grappling with, they feel like they don't know enough. They feel like they're being depleted of thinking, of resources. They can look very sort of miserly or avaricious is the fancy Enneagram word. They can look kind of like tightwads because they're just holding on too tight. They're cerebral, they're intellectual, they're not giving emotion. And it comes from a place of they fear that they're running out. They don't have what it takes to remind them that they have what they need. There's no more that they need. There's no more information. They need to stand guard against getting on Google and researching, right? Researching how to be in love, researching whatever the particular issue they're focused on, because if they just know more, they'll have enough. But they have enough because they are enough. And they got to get back to this place of just knowing that about themselves, that they know enough and they have enough and they will be okay. Enneagram 6 is coming from the wound of the loyalist. It's coming from the wound of feelings of betrayal. They fear that they are either going to be betrayed or they're going to be unsafe. That's another one I could have put on here. And we have to make them feel safe and secure. Certainly, we don't have to add to these insecurities and these feelings of unsafety. So be very mindful, if you have the trust of a 6, as an example, not to betray that trust. Look, you shouldn't do it with any type. But you have to understand with the 6, it's a deep, profound wound. It's almost like they're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And so our consistency, our integrity is vital to the life of a 6. Don't take that lightly. This is how you help people heal from their wounds. Enneagram 7. Now they're the enthusiasts, they're the optimists, they're the visionary. They like to just go out and live life. They are dealing with wounds of they don't feel deep. They don't feel responsible. They feel shallow to themselves if they admit it when I really work with them, or that they're in it to win it for themselves. There's a selfishness that can really creep in around a 7, or a lightness, but it's not light as in just having a good time. It's like they're running from something. Again, if they're unconscious, if they're reactive, and it comes from a fear that they can't handle depth. They can't handle the suffering of life, the darker shadow sides. So, not shoving it into a 7's face. When I work with the 7, we go lightly. I tread lightly. Very different than an 8 or a 4. With those types, I really push them hard. I jump in the deep end. With 7s, we tiptoe in. We start to deal with deeper and deeper stuff. I never would tell a 7 they're shallow. They're not. They're just afraid of making their standing in one place. So if you know that about a 7, really encourage them to make their stand, to take responsibility, to stop chasing down every idea or dream, but do it again in a way that doesn't freak them out and feel like overload, because they will shut down. Enneagram 8, the challenger. This is the one I identify most with. Enneagram 8's fear being vulnerable, being weak. So for instance, if I cry at a movie, which doesn't happen easily or often, I've always struggled with getting to my tears, but Ariella would never say to me, "Oh, you're crying," sort of point it out in a negative way. She rewards it. She longs for me to show the vulnerable side of myself. Knowing this about an 8, especially male 8s, but not just male 8s, that it really takes a lot for them to get to them to open up, to share, like laughing at an 8's weaknesses, pointing them out is a sure way to get shut down. So you don't prey upon that vulnerability, because it takes a lot for an 8 to admit it or to get to it. And so helping an 8 heal by encouraging that vulnerability and inviting them to be soft. And Enneagram 9, last but not least, these are the peacemakers. The Enneagram 9 really has a fear around conflict. Could have put conflict on here, but it's more than conflict. It's that, like the 7 feels like they can't handle suffering or depth or responsibility. 9s can fear that they can't handle conflict and that they'll lose themselves. And so this is a feeling of being lost. In some ways, I think Enneagram 9 feels lost on the planet, like they don't belong in this world, in this incarnate heavy life, and it's just too much for them. So not forcing the conflict or the difficult things onto a 9, but inviting them into it slowly. One minor example of this is anytime I raise my voice with a daughter who's a 9, she can't hear me. She goes away, she retreats. It's like a turtle pulling into her shell. Now my daughter who's an 8, if I yell, she's like, "Oh, finally I can hear you," because she needs that intensity. But 9s really need to feel like it's safe space for them to come out of that shell. So these are all just simple, quick ways that we can understand not only the Enneagram 9 of the wounds in our lives, but in the lives of others. Because when we know somebody's wounds, look, we can either flick their wound, right, and make it more painful, or hopefully we can help tend to their wounds, dress their wounds, nurture their wounds. You can't heal for them. That's the work of an individual on their journey. But if I know somebody's wounds, I can support them much more intently and intensely on the healing journey. And that's another reason and another application of the Enneagram. If you'd like to learn more, jump over to Defiant Spirit. In the show notes here, you have a link that'll take you to my Discover Your Number Enneagram Discovery Tool. It's complimentary. You don't need to take an Enneagram test. You just need to go through all 9 types and discover your who, what, and why. That's how my program is built. It could take you as quickly as 5 minutes, and you could spend probably 5 hours on there. That's up to you, but you will discover not only your wounds, but your pathway to healing, which is what this is all about. I will see you in the next set of videos. Until then, discover your number, own your number, and defy your number. Take care.